video, I'm going to show you how to service your scissors and how to care for your scissors. And that is oiling them and setting the tension on a scissor. And I will explain as I go along why that is important. So I've got 3 different scissors here just to show you, and 3 different ones. I'll explain why these 3 are picked. Then we have this little ring. Some of you might have seen it, or if you bought a scissor, you received something similar looking to this. Now, this is called a tension adjuster to adjust the tension on a scissor. And then we've got a soft cloth that often comes with a scissor when you buy a scissor. If you buy such a scissor that it doesn't have one, you can use a soft cloth that you have for cleaning your eyeglasses. And then we also have a scissor oil pen. Now, you can only use a scissor oil on your scissors. You cannot use clipper blade oil. Don't put that on your scissors. And then we also have a soft barber's brush that they use for shaving, which is really good to brush off any loose hair cuttings off your scissor blades in between doing this, because this doesn't need to be done every time you've used your scissor. So if you scissored with your scissor, you'll find that around the screws and around there, you'll have some hair stuck, and that's how we brush the hair away on both sides from that pivot screw there. And after you're scissoring, if you can wipe your blades off with a soft cloth, or also brush off any loose hair like so. So this doesn't need major service or cleaning. So now that I've got rid of all the visible hair off my scissors, you want to store them nice and clean. You don't have to oil them every single time, but every once in a while. Really depends how often you use them, or how much you've been cutting with them. Now, my scissor oil usually comes, it has a very fine point, because you only want to put a tiny little drop of oil between, I'm trying to do it, between your blades. So I've put it right there, little drop of oil right there, and then I'm going to put the blades downwards, so they always face down, so that the oil I put between the blades can run down into the screw. And I will move the empty scissors, sort of air cutting like this a few times, just to oil that tension screw. You don't want to oil too much, because you don't want the blades constantly feeling too loose. Now that I've oiled them, I'll wipe any excesses. Sometimes the oil can help flush out little hairs from in between. So we'll wipe the excess oil away and down the blades on both sides. And I can see that there was some hair that got flushed out right there under the screw. We'll wipe that away with the soft cloth. And now, before I store my scissors, I'm going to check for tension. Now, tension is important to set on a scissor, because if the scissor's too loose or too tight, you will damage your blades. Whether it's a thinner or a straight, the tension's got to be right. So, what is the right tension? Now, how to check for it? So you hold your scissor upright like this, and you'll put one blade into 90, almost a 90-degree angle, and then you let go. Now, you see this scissor snapped shut completely. That is not good. That means this scissor tension is too loose. So you see, if I do that, they'll just snap back right back, and you can feel it. They feel very loose. So we need to tighten it. And this particular scissor, I'm going to need the adjuster, because it's got a screw like this. There's 2 little holes either end. So I need to find the bit on the ring that fits there, because they're all different. And it's like a screw. So tighten to the right, loosen to the left. So I'm going to turn it 1 notch, just the one, and I'll see where I am. I'll check again, snapshot again. So I need to tighten it more. Again, just one. Hang on, that's gonna be tight. I think it went 2 notches, so you need to go 1 back because that was too tight. See, my blades went. That's still too tight. You can hear a little click, so you want to be careful. Now, this scissor is sort of raw, and it's my favourite scissor. This one isn't snapping back nicely. You see, it seems very tight. It stays open too wide. This was my favourite scissor, and I refuse to give it up, so we'll see. That's getting there. So we put a bit more oil on it. And you see, they should be about 12:05 on the clock, or 12:10. So the blades should stop about there. And that's your tensions right. So that's about right. You see, they didn't snap shut. So this scissor is ready to be stored and put away. Now, this scissor's been done, and you can see it's got a very completely flat screw, like you'd see on your normal household screws. And you would use a completely flat one to go in there. So that one's done. Now I'm going to show you the full service on a scissor. That was just the in-between scissoring, how we care for the scissor. And you want to repeatedly, often, if the scissor doesn't feel right, you want to check the tension and make sure you haven't got too much hair on your blades. Now this scissor has got a such screw so that I don't need this tensioner because I can unscrew it with this knob here. So what I'm going to do now, this is my favourite scissor, and I'm going to unscrew that left until my blades come completely apart. So I'm just going to keep screwing, then it's suddenly loose, and you want to have a look what your scissor looked like, because they're all different when you start taking it apart for the first time. So hold it flat. I've got my finger supporting the screw at the bottom and my hand is supporting the blade. So when I unscrew, it doesn't just all fall over the place, because there are minor seals in there under the screw that you don't want to lose. So that's why I'm doing it on the table, on the soft mat, and so that I can see what comes out. And I'm unscrewing gently. And I'll take the top screw off. So there's my screw, and there's no seals. I've checked. There's a little screw, and I've checked what's there. There's no seals, but there is this little gold leaf, because you want to remember what order your parts come off. And I'm putting it all here onto a little cloth, so I can see what will come apart and in what order. And that's how I lay my scissor parts next to each other, like this. How I'm taking them off, I'm still supporting my scissor, because now if I let go, the blades will fall apart. Now I can see that there's a little, I have to turn the camera that way. Sorry if you can't see my face. I don't think that's a bad thing. Now to lift this, there's a little, like a washer, and I can't lift it up, so I'm going to tilt my scissor and get this washer off. There it is. And remember which way it was on the scissor, so that you don't put it on the wrong way round, because they often look like a little plate. They hollowed and kind of, yeah, they're not the same on either side. So you want to remember which way that washer was. And now all I've got, besides loads of hair stuck there, it's just the screw that will come out at the bottom, and I can now lift my blades, the top blade, gently off that screw. And then I'll make sure, see what's down there. Generally, there is nothing between the blades. No washer, nothing between the two blades. And now the bottom screw just popped out at the bottom. So, Now that I've got my parts laid out in the order, how I've done it, especially with the scissor I'm doing for the first time, and I've not done it before, so I can put it back together exactly how it was. It's no good taking a scissor apart and then you don't know how to put it back together, or you put it around wrong. Now you've got a little hole there where the screw will sit in. They usually will be really gunky, and that needs to be oiled as well. And then you can have a look. You could see maybe all these little dark bits. That's all hair cuttings. So I've got my other soft cloth here, and I'm going to wipe the blade and get rid of all that hair that was there, like so. And I'll get my brush and make sure that there's nothing in the screw hole. Then I'll have a look at my screw, and now I can see the screw has a little washer at the bottom, very minute, very fine petite. You probably can't even see it. It's there. There's that little washer. It's there, can you see? So make sure you don't lose that, but we want to give it a gentle brush, get the hair out of there. It's a little bit fiddly. So we'll brush that out. I'll make sure my washer is there how it was. Let's not lose that. Now I'll move on to my other blade. You can see how much hair is stuck on there and on the inside. So we're going to wipe the other blade. And note, I'm always wiping the back of the blade towards where I grip it. Not this way, because I don't want to be damaging the blade from the front. So I'm wiping it from the back. Right. And now that's nice and clean. There's no hair now. Brush out the hole in it. Make sure there's no minute little hairs. And then I will clean all the little washers that I've got here, because some have hair on them. Some bigger parts I can wipe with the cloth. Make sure they got no hair on them, and this tiny little washer. Make sure that's not got any hair on it. Now we're going to put it back together. So I'll get my screw. Make sure the washer is nicely sitting there at the bottom. And I will put my blade, the one that was at the bottom, right through. Oops. Right through. And I will hold it with my finger in place, and I'll start putting in the parts back together. But before we do that, I'm going to put a little bit of oil into the hole there, just a tiny little drop there between the screw. I should. And I'll put a little bit on that side there on a knob of the screw, so that's well lubricated. I'll wipe the excess oil. We don't want that too much. Right. Now I will take my other blade, because that's the next part how I lay my things. And remember, there's nothing ever between the two blades. So if you got one blade on, next thing the other blade goes on. So now that blade goes on, and I'll make sure it's moving nicely. I've got it sitting correctly. Now next part was a little washer, and I know which way it was on the scissor, so we put that there, and we'll put a little bit of oil there, so then that washer is well lubricated. Under the washer, and a little bit too much came out, so I'll make sure I wipe the excessive oil. Now there was this leaf. Like I said, every scissor is different, and I know which way it was on, this way and not the other way round. So I'll put and I know exactly how it was, straight on the scissor like that, and the last bit, I'll put a little oil there on top of the scissor. And now as I'm going to screw the last bit, which is the main second screw. Now, before I do that, actually, I'll tell you something. Now, you see, on this type of scissor, this last leaf, there are two tiny little bumps in this washer. This scissor's got a such washer, a different scissor's got a different washer. But on the washer just beneath your final screw, top screw, where you adjust the end that you adjust, not on the other end, there is always a washer, and it's got two little lumpy things. One's here at the bottom, and the other one is like a little notch there at the top. Now, they are the ones that hold your tension. So these bumps always have to face upwards. So in case your washer looks the same way and it's flat and it's got these bumps in it and you're not sure which way it goes, the bumpy part of the washer always faces up. Because if you put it the other way around, your tension's not going to hold, because this is what creates that click when you set your tension on a scissor. And now I can put the final bit together. Still going to hold the scissor until I screw this in. And now I'm going to start tightening. Right. Now I'll open my scissor before we get to tension adjustment, and we're going to see. Now you see these blades are not snapping into place, so that tells me that's a bit too tight. So I can feel a little notch. No, that's still not snapping back into place. So that means it's too tight. You see, this is too tight of a scissor when the blades don't want to move. Now that's it. Now we're talking. See, that was exactly correct tension. Stops about 5 to 12, the two blades. And the bumper stopper here at the bottom doesn't hit your other ring. If the bumper hits your ring and the blade's closed fully, it's too loose, which I'll show you. Let's loosen it up. I'll just show you. So if I do this now, you see, the bumper hit the other ring and the blade's closed fully. That's too loose. So now we have to tighten it back up. And we'll check. Still too loose, because I turned it 2 notches. And that's exactly the perfect set tension. That's how it can be a little bit more, maybe like so. Depends on the scissor. But this is nice. That's just how I like my scissors, how they should be. They shouldn't close. So, and that's a scissor done. And it's been oiled well between. I'll just give it a few movements of the scissor just to lubricate well. And this scissor is ready to be stored and put away. So, now, another part of this video I will show you how we hold the scissors correctly, as some of you don't know. So sometimes you've got a finger rest, like a screw one, or you've got the permanent one which doesn't move. Now, the scissor, you should put your, you know, the one with the finger rest always goes into your ring finger, like that. And your pinky should rest on the finger rest. So now my scissor is sitting there. If I open the blades up, my thumb should go just through. And that's how you hold your scissor. Now, you don't want to poke your thumb right through. This is why I've got these rings in there. You just want to be, you can even just touch it like that, or very gently put it in, but never to poke through the other end. If that keeps happening, that your thumb keeps going through, then let's have a look. Not on this one. On this one, let's have a look on this one. You see, if I took this ring out, my thumb will go completely through. You never want to have a scissor sit in your hand like this, because you can't open. See, I can't open the blade, only this much, and it's already hurting my thumb and the wrist. So you will destroy your hand if you scissor this way, and you can't scissor properly because you can't open the blades. So you want to put rings in. Some of my scissors, because my hands are so tiny, some of my scissors have 2 rings in them, as many as it's needed, until I figure out exactly. All right, I'll do that later. So let's go back to this blade. Now, my hand also is too small for my pinky to reach the finger rest often, so I have to rest my pinky on there. So if you wonder why my pinky isn't on the rest, it's because it can't reach. For me, that would be awkward to hold the scissor there. Sometimes it can reach, sometimes it slips off. So it's just about. My hands are too tiny for any scissor. Now that you've got your thumb sorted, now you see where my thumb doesn't poke through, I can open the blades almost you should be able to open the blades 90 degrees, but my thumb is too short because my hands are so tiny, they don't make child fit-in scissors. So for me, it can be still quite a mission to open the blades. I can just about open 90 degrees. So that's how we do it. So now that you've got your fingers sorted, and that also, this ring finger, you don't want it all the way through. Although this one fits, but it's mostly just your fingers just kind of resting. You can push with your thumb against it, against the ring, but usually this doesn't tend to move, even though it can get all the way through. But this one doesn't poke, the thumb is more important. Now, how are we going to, you need to practice your scissoring correctly, because that will save your scissor. And they often say that when you're a student or a novice, buy cheap scissors. Now the problem with that is that cheap scissors are often not balanced well, besides the fact that the blades are probably cheap metal, so they're going to get dull very quickly, and it's a false economy buying cheap scissors, because you dull them once, usually very quickly, and they are never the same. Even if you have them sharpened, they just don't have the lifetime in them. Some of my scissors back here, all of these are from same manufacturer. They have lifetime warranty, and they're very quality steel, so that scissor should have a 20-25 years lifespan if you care for it well and if you scissor with it correctly. So now we're going to practice. We've got the scissors sitting nicely in my hand. We're going to start opening and closing the blade, and you need to learn this action. To help yourself, you can put pressure on the blade that doesn't move, because that blade should not move. You should only move the blade that your thumb is operating, like so. And you start slowly, and you want to get a scissor that's comfortable for your hand, and you just want to sit and practice. And eventually you'll be able to pick up speed and scissor fast. And then you also want to do it, again, I'm putting pressure against the blade to make sure that only one blade moves. So hold my hand there, and you just practice this way. And then you turn your arm, and now I'm pushing my blade against my hand, and now only this one moves. You see, now my pinky can't reach there because my hands are too small. And now you practice this way, and then you can practice against the wall that way. Always make sure that only your thumb moves. And look, none of these 4 fingers make a move. You don't want to scissor like this, where you moving all these 4 fingers and sort of gripping the hair like so. You don't want to do that. So you really want to practice just moving your thumb and just the one blade, like so. And that's a very short one, and you can use much bigger scissor. Let's take that one. I love this one. This one is a super speed, fast cutting scissor. So again, you can help yourself. That's a straight. If it fits your hand, and then you just move one blade, and you can see none of this moves for correct scissoring. And you can just practice, and eventually it will come to you, and in every direction. And you want to practice and just move your blades. And I can feel these are two. No, they're not loose. And then you can eventually pick up speed even with a bigger scissor. This one is a super fast beast. This one can move fast, this scissor. Right, and last thing also that we can talk about is about type of scissors that you've got. So now we've got, let's take that one, and let's take a look at that one, and that's about all I can probably show you. So we don't need these. So get this one and get this one. Right, now I've got here 3 different toothed scissors. Now, that's your typical thinner, this little one. This is another thinner. You can see they're very similar looking. They're both single side thinners, but we'll get to the point what's different about them. And then you probably see this new thing with really big chunky teeth. Now, this scissor is usually called a chunker, or in human terms, because this is a human scissor, you might hear a word texturizer. Texturizer, this is also a texturizer, but it's got slightly smaller teeth, but bigger than a thinner. Now that's a barber scissor, so you can find similar scissors in the dogs. Now let's go back to difference between these 2 thinners. This one, I don't know how well the video will show. The quality isn't really great. So the difference between scissor is in their teeth, in their thinners. This one doesn't have micro-serrated teeth, and this one has. And micro-serrated means that each tooth has a little cut, sort of a dent in each tooth. And you can see that. You can see they like a V-shaped teeth. So, like I said, they got like a fork. Each tooth is like a fork because each tooth's got a split in between. So that's micro-serrated. And then when they don't have micro-serrated, they can have different shaped teeth as well. And they all feel different how they cut. Sometimes you need to buy and try before you find out which scissor suits you best. Now, I love micro-serrated thinners. This is also micro-serrated, but they have less serration than this one. And this one's also micro-serrated. And that's a very good scissor. See, so that's a 7-inch and that's a little 5.5 inch. So I use the bigger one for the body, smaller one for the feet, ears and heads and any detailed work. And the micro-serrated, that's a brilliant scissor because it's good for novice people who are learning to scissor, because these little teeth, they will hold the hair for you so that you can cut it with your moving blade. Because if you haven't got a micro-serrated, like this scissor feels completely different when you scissor with it. And the hair tends to slide off the teeth. So it's a little bit different with it. It still blends nicely, it cuts well, but the hair tends to slide. So it feels sort of, it feels different. I prefer, if you're starting out, look for micro-serrated teeth because they will hold the hair for you. And this is why micro-serrated are ideal for setter hair, which is long, soft and silky drop coat. So you need to pick the hair up and it has tendencies to slip off your scissor. So micro-serrated holds the hair for you nicely for your blade to cut it, making a job a lot easier. Because like for example on a curly coat or harsh coated breeds, the hair can sit quite well on any blade, so it won't slide off your blades. But it really need to work with the scissor, and then you will find out which one suits you better, which one you like to work with. And the last thing that we'll cover about scissors is type of blades. Now, you probably notice that some tell you now type of edge, sort of cutting edge. What sort of cutting edge has been put on a scissor? All of my scissors are basically convex edges because they all barber scissors and hairdressing scissors, so they all have convex edge, which means the way the scissor will sharpen into what edge. And the convex edge, you don't want to use that really to bulk a coat out, because convex edge is for the finish, so it gives a beautiful smooth cut for a nice finish, but it's a very fine blade, so it will get destroyed quicker if you cut in big bulk with it. If you need to chop a big bulk of hair, you want to use a beveled edge, which is this sort of cheaper scissor. You can't tell a difference. I can't. The sharpening can tell. I can't, and I haven't got my glasses and I can't see very well anyway. But this is my scissor that is beveled edge, and it doesn't make a nice cut. If I cut with this scissor and then I cut with this scissor, if I cut the same portion of hair, this scissor with a convex edge will have a much nicer cut than this one with the beveled. So that's what it means when you see the different edges on the scissor. Thinners, like this thinner for example, they're usually a heavy workhorse, so despite this scissor being also convex edge, it tends to do quite well and maintain it to cut in bulk out. So the thinner usually will stay sharper for longer. It can work quite well, but not every thinner. If I abuse this thinner, this would dull super quickly. But some thinners will take on, despite being a convex edge. So convex is a finish and fine edge that you need to be really careful what you cut with it, and how much hair you put between the blades. Because if you put a big chunk of hair between your blades, and then you have to force the blades to cut through it, that's how you're going to dull them very quickly, and you can even destroy the whole scissor. That's what it means when you see the convex edge. But like I said, on the thinners, they usually, all my thinners are convex edges, and they seem to, especially this little samurai and this 7-inch, which also has micro-serrated teeth, they cope really well with putting big bulk and cutting big bulk out and bulking out. Now, one thing about chunkers, this is not a scissor you need for a setter. It's not. You do not need a chunker for a setter. I find, even though this one is a expensive scissor, and it's got a fine convex edge, so it cuts beautifully on poodles, doodles and other breeds. But these type of teeth, these big chunky teeth, they will really mark the setter coat. So I don't. You do not need a chunker for a setter. I find that they leave big tooth marks in a setter type coat. So you only need a good micro-serrated thinner, a longer blade, 7 or perhaps 7.5 inch, but I think that's too big. 7 is, I think, perfect, even though it's a big dog, and to trim the underline or bigger sections. Like this is the 8 one, 8 inch, so you see it's a lot bigger, thinner. Now the trouble with a big Scissor, you can take a small chunk of hair and it will cut, but if you put a big bulk between the blades, because the blades are longer, the tips will struggle to cut, and they often end up with tips getting dull too quickly and not cutting nicely. So I think 7 is a good size, and then you want a little 5.5 inches, more than enough for the detail work. And also for a setter, you want a small 5.5 or 6 inch straight blade with a nice pointy tip, so that you can get around the nails. I only use this for the feet, maybe trim a tail, but not really, but you can. But you want a nice pointy tip on it, so you don't want to have a, I don't know if I have a scissor. Leave it there, I'll tip across this one. Let's have a look. This one's got such a thicker, slightly thicker tip, you see. So this scissor will be better for detailed work and tidying around the nails than this one that's a bit more rounded at the tip. And you don't need the blade, long blades. This is a 6 inch, but it doesn't have a really long blade. And this is a nice scissor to just work around the feet. So this is all the scissors you need for a setter, really. Bigger, thinner, micro serrated teeth, smaller, thinner, and a small straight. And that's all you need. Well, I hope this helped you guys understanding a little bit about scissors and scissor care. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks again. Bye-bye.